behind the camera, but we'd like to welcome you all to our second information session for the Graduate Civic Scholars Program. My name is Lucy Ingram, and I am one of the co-directors along with Dr. Allison Marsh, who you'll be hearing from the latter part of the slide set today. So we're going to talk to you about the program in general. We'll review some of the highlights of the application process and obviously field any questions that you have for us about the program. We also are joined by two of our scholars. Another one will be joining us about midway through the presentation. Two of our current scholars to also give you a real-world, candid, hopefully candid perspective on how they're experiencing the current cohort of the Scholars Program. Let's see that. Okay, next. All right, so that's a little bit about me. In my other hat at the university, I'm an associate professor in the School of Public Health in the Department of Health Promotion, Education, and Behavior. And also, I work with our online Masters in Public Health program, also in HPEB. Allison March is an associate professor in history in the College of Arts and Sciences, and she was a previous faculty director and is the co-director along with me for this current cohort. Okay. Also, we have Heather Bowling, who is an MSW student in the College of Social Work. We'll ask Heather to come up a little bit later to tell us about her experience and field any specific questions that we have from our guests. And Sarah King will be joining us. She is a Master's of Public Health student in the same department where I teach, Health Promotion, Education, and Behavior in the School of Public Health, also a current scholar. And then third, we have Sam Weber, who's joining us here in person. Sam is a PhD student, also in the School of Public Health, a lot of fabulous scholars there, and exercise science. Okay. So what is civic scholarship? We like to kind of start with the foundational perspective on civic scholarship, and we define that as public engaged academic work referring to scholarly or creative activity integral to a faculty member or student's academic area and that contributes to the public good. And so what we found with some of our introductory sessions in the summertime, our kind of May intensive session, is that it was very important for us to make sure that we had a same level of understanding about what civic scholarship was, because we call it different things in different disciplines, and by extension we kind of have a different understanding. But what we also found was that we get mired in jargon a lot of times, but we really were saying the same things. And so we'll do that similarly in the May intensive session, make sure we're on the same page with what civic scholarship means. Okay. And then civic science, a method of inquiry into contemporary issues that enriches society by bringing together people from all backgrounds and shared projects that analyze current conditions, envision a better future, and devise a pathway to that future. And so for us, we really also, as a hallmark of the program, invite applications from a variety of different disciplines. As you'll hear from some of the current scholars, that really does help enrich the experience. And you'll find that even you may enter with some perspective or some idea of a project and then end up having something totally different that you end up doing, or you may end up working in teams with people too. So we really want to highlight that whole notion of multidisciplinarity as it relates to contemporary issues. Okay. So for us, two important resources to review when preparing your application include the Graduate Civic Scholars Program website and more information, a video that we made a couple years ago also describing the Scholar Program. Myself, Allison, and a former faculty director shot that video to also give an overview. So there are a number of different resources to hopefully give you an idea about the program and what to expect. Okay. So by way of overview, the program is open to graduate students, and that includes master's and doctoral students. Again, we have both of those represented by current scholars here in the room. Also, we do have a focus on community and public engagement. So what does that mean? It really is an opportunity to take what you're learning in the classroom and engage with community members. And we can describe a couple of ways that we've done that with the current cohort a little bit later on. It is action-based research, and so we are looking to take what we're learning in the classroom setting into the streets, if you will, and really perform and engage with community and community members. Interdisciplinary, there's that word again. In terms of what you receive, if you are chosen to become a scholar, there is a $500 stipend that's distributed to you that you can use for your research projects. And then also you do have a notation on your transcript that appears that indicates your participation and successful completion in the Graduate Civic Scholars Program. Regarding requirements, as I mentioned, there is a 2-week intensive introductory session that we do in May. And these are in-person intensive meetings. You have the dates and times that are there. Those are hard and fast at this point. We also do have monthly seminars that occur in the fall and the spring semesters. Actually, this morning was one of our first seminars for the spring semester. We also do have a project that we're asking all of our scholars to complete. And so this is the project that you submit as part of your application that can start out as a germ of an idea, right, and then, or range to something that's a little bit more involved, right? So there are some people who decide to use this as an opportunity to explore something more in-depth as part of their master's theses or their dissertation research, for example. Not a requirement, but some of our scholars have chosen to do that. Others have just really been interested in a topic, for example, and so this is an opportunity for them to really explore that a little bit further. And then finally, a public presentation. So we do have, by the Office of the Vice President, the Discover UofSC Day that occurs this year on April 20th. And it's an opportunity for students from across the university to present their research. And so our graduate civic scholars are also going to be presenting their research at Discover Day, which is on April 20th this year. Okay. In terms of benefits of participation, we see this as professional and some even personal benefits. Professionally, we think about this as developing a cohort of like-minded colleagues. So we've heard that students or scholars kind of talk about, well, we get into our silos, right? It's very easy for us to talk to other people about the things that we do, and we take for granted that they have an understanding about it. There's a certain level of elevated understanding and critical analysis that happens when you get into the room with people who already understand what you're doing or understand the value of what you're doing, but you have to take a moment to explain it a little bit further. And so we see that as a professional benefit of participation. New interdisciplinary research partnerships. So as I mentioned, we invite scholars from across the university. So we've got folks in our current cohort that represent philosophy, history, social work, public health, for a variety of disciplines, right? So that's by design. We want to invite that because we do feel that that enriches what happens in terms of public and community engagement. Innovative teaching practices. So we also don't want to limit this to just thinking about research proposals. There are folks who also have interest in teaching. And so is this an opportunity for you to develop curricula, for example, or some teaching modules that integrate action-based research or action practice. Community connections. So, for example, we've taken a visit to a community group that I had experience working with to give scholars an opportunity to engage with established community groups, ask questions, think about ways to engage communities, right? So take what we're learning from the page and really try to figure out, well, how do we make those community connections, right? And really get a sense for the fact that those things take time. It takes time to develop relationships. And oftentimes, in the confinements of a course, for example, it's very difficult to, for one semester course, it's very difficult to establish those relationships. So we find that this type of format over several different semesters will be an opportunity to massage that relationship over a longer period of time. New ways of thinking about community engagement. So again, kind of in the room with like-minded people who may use different jargon, but also can elevate the way that we understand, well, community means this in my discipline. What does it mean in your discipline? And making comparisons there. Okay. In terms of personal benefits, increased awareness of community-engaged research and civic scholarship. This can be in terms of what's already going on around campus or around the city or state. It can be in terms of awareness about what's going on across campus. It can be also thinking about, well, what can you do to extend what's already being done? Okay. Secondly, new ways of thinking about your own research, your own teaching, or your own practice. Also benefit. And then third, supportive community, again, of like-minded scholars in the room.
Thank you, Lucy, for giving a little bit of the background of the program. I'm Allison Marsh. I'm one of the co-directors, and I'm going to give you the nitty-gritty of how do you apply, all of the reasons why you are here to ask questions about that. So the application, first thing that you have to recognize, and this is in multiple slides, so you'll see it again and again, the application deadline is February 9th at 5 p.m., and that is a strict deadline. One of the things that Lucy and I both really think about is this as a professional development opportunity, and the NSF doesn't care if your grant is 5 minutes late, and so we are trying to model that behavior. So keep this in mind. I'll say it multiple times, February 9th at 5 p.m. The application is two parts. There's the part that you as the graduate student submit yourself, and then a separate part where we get confidential letters of recommendation. Those letters from your recommenders will be submitted directly to us. They do not pass through your hands. If you want to do the slides. So move that closer if you want. So first off, the items to be sent by your recommenders. This is the information of how they should be sent. They should be sent via email to the gradprofdev@sc.edu account with specifically the subject heading of GCSP and your name. This is how we're going to be sorting things and having our review committee, and it all goes through a single account. So please follow these so that we don't lose any of your application materials. So what are we looking for in our letters of recommendation? We're looking for 2 letters of recommendation from people who know your work. So we really want your advisor, your mentor, to write this letter and explain how this project will benefit your scholarship, your growth, your development as a scholar. Those are things that we are looking for. And I will say that I just saw someone from the audience take a picture of this, and so these slides are going to be available. Is that correct? Yes, these slides are going to be available, so you don't necessarily have to be writing everything down right now. You can go back to these for reference. These letters are confidential. They should address your strengths as a candidate. The other thing that we're also looking for is an email from your Director of Graduate Studies to make sure that they approve that you are going to be spending your time as part of this program. Every department has a Director of Graduate Studies, and so you should find out who that is. This just makes sure that that your department is aware of your cross-campus initiatives and what you're a part of. We want to make sure that everyone knows that you're part of this program. So the part of the application that should be sent directly by you as the applicant. You can, the key thing is that they should all be a single PDF. We don't want 8 different documents because, again, that's how we lose things. So put them all and merge them into a single PDF with your name appearing at the top of each page so that we can track you. Send it to the exact same email address that we want your recommenders to send it to. That's gradprofdev, so graduate professional development, @sc.edu. Again, the deadline, February 9th at 5 p.m. So what are we looking for in your application? It's multiple parts. It is an application form that is found on the graduate school's website, so just fill out that application. A copy of your academic CV or resume. We do not need to know that you are a barista at Starbucks. We were looking for your academic qualifications. Why does this help you? Now, because Civic Scholarship is part of working in the community, you may have some very relevant community volunteer experience. That is perfectly acceptable to include on your resume if it is appropriate to your scholarly activities. So again, think about what is appropriate to the project that you're proposing and what information will help us understand you as an applicant. And then there are 3 questions and a personal statement. Again, this is all online, so you can look at it. Send all of this as a single PDF by the end of the by the deadline. We're going to go into a little bit more detail on that with the next slide. So, in your personal statement, we are looking for any experience that sets you up for success with this. So what is your past involvement with Civic Scholarship? What are your experiences with service learning or community engagement? Now, for some disciplines, this is not a part that is regularly incorporated into your curriculum. You may be breaking new ground with that, and that's okay. The amount of experience people have comes from very, very little to a great deal of expertise. We are open to all of it, but we are just looking for what is driving you to be a part of this program. With that, we are looking for your current vision. Specifically, what is a project that you would like to execute over the next year that we can think about in scope of what you can do over a year that brings your research, your scholarship, your disciplinary background into a practice in the community? How can you translate your thesis, your dissertation, into community-engaged civic scholarship? So we need to have a project. Now this is one of the things that we get a lot of questions about, of how complete of a project do you need to have? And the question, the answer just varies. It really depends on your background. Some people write with just a germ of an idea, like, I want to do this, but I need to figure out the biggest, the details a little. Other people come in with a fully formed plan and know exactly what they're going to work on. We are open to that level of variety, but it's key that you have a project. It's key that we know what you're going to do. You can't come into this saying, I'll figure it out on the fly. We have a lot of adaptability, a lot of flexibility, but we want to have a starting point. So whatever the germ of your idea is, make sure you encapsulate that in your personal statement. The last part is really perspective. What makes you qualified to do this project? Why should, what benefit will you bring to the community of civic scholars? As Lucy said, you know, one of the real values of this program is bringing together people from across many disciplines to share their experiences, to talk about civic scholarship. So we want you to be engaged as a group, and so what perspective do you offer? What does that mean? And that can be, like, say, that you're from a discipline that does not traditionally have a lot of work in the community, and maybe you want to change that. And your perspective is, I'm a beginner and I'm trying to break new ground with my discipline. Or you may be coming from a discipline that has an entire century of background of experience, and you may be saying, hey, let's learn from what we have done. Let's also see where we've gotten stale and where we need to innovate. These are all different perspectives that we value by having people from different backgrounds. And I can't say that enough. This is a program that is open to every single unit on campus, so please think about applying to that. So now I'm going to introduce our current graduate civic scholars. I'm going to invite them to come up to the front and give a little bit of their perspective of what they've learned, what they have, why did they apply, and any tips they may have. And at this point, I'll also open it up to questions that we will sort of field by way of the computer. So we have Dr. Brandt is monitoring the Facebook feed to get live questions there, but we also have people in the audience here if they want to ask questions, and we'll try to just sort of figure that out as we go along. So if I can bring our current scholars up. Can they sit? If they sit, will they be in the field of study? You guys want to sit in the front here? Okay. Can I ask one question? We have a first question, yes.
It's about the application process.
Yes.
So is it one letter for the from the advisor and one from the department head?
Yes, we're looking for 2 letters of recommendation so that we get a, Heather, you're going to have to move over a little bit. So we're looking to have 2 letters that show support. So, from people who know your work. So, okay, I'll let you guys work out your experiences. How do you want to start
first?
Yeah, you go first.
Alright, so I'm from exercise science, and my area is in mental health. So my idea started with the prevention program, and that changed within 2 weeks, I think it was. And then it changed again in August. So now what I'm doing is taking a mental health
By
screening.
choice, right?
Yes, this was completely by choice.
You might want to
Not
talk about
forced.
how it changed a little bit.
It was just too broad of an idea, so I tried to narrow it down and align it with my dissertation. So what I'm doing is taking a mental health screening, very comprehensive, to South Carolina State University, getting them on board, and screening their athletes for these potential mental health disorders, I guess, and then using that information to inform their athletic trainers and their medical staff of what might be going on with the athletes. And so it's a work in progress, but it's coming along, so it's kind of exciting.
Hi, I'm Sarah King, and I'm a Master's of Public Health student in the Health Promotion, Education, and Behavior Department. I focus a lot on what's called policy, systems, and environmental changes to promote health. So I focus on things, what's called the built environment, like sidewalks, parks, trails, and how that can increase physical activity among a certain population. So for my particular Graduate Civic Scholars project, I focused on what is called Walkability, and I looked here on UofSC's campus in Columbia. And in the fall of 2016, I was able to do a walkability assessment through my graduate assistantship, but really wanted a driving force in order to take that data and make change within the community here at UofSC. That included building partnerships, so Civic Scholarship, and reaching out to different partners throughout the UofSC's campus, academic as well as services and staff. So through that, I was able to partner with UofSC facilities and making small changes throughout UofSC's Columbia's campus, including addition to pedestrian signs and cutting back vegetation that was blocking certain walking paths throughout UofSC. And has since then, UofSC Facilities has been a great partner and has really grown this initiative and invested into it, partnering with an organization called ALTA. They're a transportation company, and they are working now on a 5 to 10 year plan on increasing the walkability and bikeability of UofSC Columbia's campus. So it was a great opportunity. Graduate Civic Scholars Program really gave me kind of the support and initiative to go on and pursue and reach out to other people with my project.
Now Heather, you started with one project and then changed. So start with what you applied to do and then talk through the process and what you're up to now.
Okay. I'm a Master's of Social Work student. My own research interest is values clarification and values-based decision making. So of course I came in with one idea and I left. I'm going to leave with another. I came in with an idea to improve social and recreational opportunities for special needs children and their families. And then I got in this room, I sat with all these people, and it turned out I had my interests aligned very closely with a PhD student from communication disorders. She had the same problem, except with patients who have aphasia and their caregivers, their families. So I abandoned my project in a hot minute, and
Which is perfectly allowable.
right, came in at 8 o'clock one morning, and by 11:30 that morning, Laura Lee and I were talking, and so now we've been working together all this year to do a needs analysis and create some field placements for MSW students so they can provide services to the patients and their families who use services of the Aphasia Lab.
Very good. So we open it to questions, people in the room, and then I'll let Heather view if there are questions online. So people in the room.
So you guys were the Graduate Civic Scholars for 2017?
This current year.
This current year.
This current year.
So they applied this time last year, and then they were part of the May session, and then they're
And then it ends after that.
It,
So
it ends
it's a
in
1 year.
April, so it goes a full academic year.
Ah.
So they are current scholars.
Current scholars. So,
How How many are there of the scholars?
There are currently 11 scholars. We have room for up to 20 scholars in the program. And I will add that it is a competitive process. So we take people based on their projects and the feasibility of their projects. So although we have room to grow, we only grow if the applicant pool works with it.
Can you, one more question.
Oh, you can ask as many questions as you want. We're here for you. This is an information panel.
Can you explain any of the creative projects or that people have done that are non-health related?
Oh, like Jordan,
Yeah.
dance.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk, or do you want us to? Yeah, I was going to say, you're so excited about Jordan.
I love Jordan. Well, because Jordan got us permission to move around and stand up and sit down during seminar, which is really important. So one of the scholars this year is a master's candidate in the theater and dance department. And he is doing some really amazing work with doing qualitative research. Then he takes that research and he crunches it around, and then he performs it in front of folks who can relate to that research, and then they add to it live. Research as performance. And what he's doing, his project involves teachers who've left the profession at different spots, and every time he talks about it, I get more excited about it, which is really weird because Jordan's so excited, not really excited, I'm not really excited.
So I will say, I don't know if this falls in the creative category, but a non-health related person is one of our scholars is from the philosophy department, and philosophy is one of those areas, those disciplines that don't have a lot of history in civic engagement. And he is doing a project on the nature of wisdom, and he is going out to community groups and talking to them about what is wisdom, what is perceived wisdom. He's looking at community elders and community youth and trying to translate these notions of wisdom. So it's a very different way to look at that. Other humanities-based, we have a graduate student in history who's doing an oral history project on Jewish women in the feminist medical movement. So that's an interesting project there.
Charter school.
Like I keep talking, so I was like,
We have a student who's in education who came to us with an interest in starting her own charter school. And while that is very laudable, over several different course meetings did it take for us to kind of say, well, let's think about what piece of that could you do over the course of a year. And so we're really working with her, and she wants to end up with her own charter school. And so kind of carving out a niche that can be developed, engaging with the community, finding out what the needs are, finding out what the interests are in the course of the project, the one-year program.
I will say scope management is probably one of the biggest things that we talk about, because while in the application process we love the enthusiasm, we also are very conscious of knowing that you are full-time graduate students and you are working towards your own degree requirements. We want to make sure that that you pick a project that can be completed in an academic year, a little less than an academic year, because it really is May to the beginning of April. So say closer to 10 months.
Do you recommend that our project be somewhat close to what we're doing in our dissertation?
Great question.
Because I'm also in philosophy, and in order to take my dissertation project to make it a civic scholarship would require a lot of creativity, I think.
So,
I mean, for me, it's helped me kind of refine their research, kind of get you ready for the writing process. And for mine, it actually builds into what I'm going to be doing. Eventually, I want to take it out to more HBCU schools. So one school component is part of it. And so for me, it's really helped. I believe there was somebody else that was doing it too. Was Jillian doing it as well?
So we have,
Tim, right?
I was gonna say, a number of
Couple of them,
students see the Graduate Civic Scholar Program as something that works in alignment with either their thesis or their dissertation. But we've also had students who do things that have nothing to do with their project,
Yeah, mine.
yeah, so, you know, so it goes either way. And so one of the things to be thinking about is how do you want to become involved in community engaged research? If your existing scholarship works towards that, then that's great. Align it with the work you're already doing. If it does not, then we don't want to keep that from doing that. And so Heather's an example of that, but I'm also just going to use we had this conversation this morning with our student from philosophy who, one of the things he said, because we were doing project updates and reports, and he said, well, I've done a lot of scholarly reading on this, and it was not regionally specific to the work I'm doing here in the South, and it doesn't really match up. And so I followed up with the question of, does this inform back to your dissertation? And, he paused and said, for the most part, not directly, but it may actually inform the writing of a chapter. So again, there's a lot of intangible ways that this program can benefit you both professionally and personally. And part of that is just opening your mind to a different way of thinking about what does research mean and what is the point of our education and how do we share this research with different audiences.
Yeah, I think it can, for example, it can introduce new methodological approaches to you that you weren't familiar with prior to being part of the program. And for some, it may be a welcome departure from kind of the rigor of what you're used to doing. And so, so it may be an opportunity to exercise a different part of your brain for a moment and then be able to refer back to what your, kind of relegated area of study is.
I do see your hand, but I just wanted to give Heather a moment since you're doing something not related to your thesis at all. Would you like to talk about time management of how does this work versus your...
How does this work? It's really nice that I have a partner. So as she gets busy, I pick up more of a load. This week I got really busy, so she picked up doing some of the load. That was really great. Time management's important because the weeks seem to slip by, and then all of a sudden you realize I meant to call those 4 people and set that meeting. And if you've not done it before, you can really underestimate how long it takes to get 5 people in one space at one time to talk about a topic. So time management, being really clear about what needs to get done, how long it's going to take, and when you're going to have that time is pretty important. That's why I have my washi tape problem and my highlighter problem and my calendar, just to manage everything.
The nature of my research is I work with people and it's confidential, and so I would like a space to work through a project with dealing with my research with these people, and so I was wondering, could this room or this group of people be considered a safe space to talk about my research, a non-public space?
I'll turn that over to us.
Sorry.
So.
I feel so, yes, very much. There was an activity that we did within our summer session where it was different prompts essentially, and we had to, and some of them got into politics and some of them got into gender roles and things like that, and we all had sticky notes and we had to write our thoughts or reactions to that particular prompt. And that was really like a breaking the ice moment for the group, so we could form trust among each other and learn more about each other and how we view the world, not only in our own academic fields, but just overall. And so since then, anything that's been shared has been done so with confidence, and there really hasn't been any conflict among that either.
I would agree with that. I mean, coming in, you're kind of, for me, doing mental health, it's kind of scary because you don't want to, put that all out there for some of those student athletes. So I understand that component of it, but being able to share my ideas with everybody else in the room who doesn't really know exactly what you're doing is really helpful, because they can help you broaden your scope a little bit and give you some ideas that you probably never thought of. But I always felt comfortable sharing my thoughts with them, and keeping that still very confidential as well. Because we deal with a lot of, I still deal with a lot of that stuff as well.
I'm just going to add one thing to that, in that because this is all a class-based activity, if you're doing confidential human subject research, you do not necessarily have to go through IRB approval. Yet, because we would like you to do research that then is beneficial to your long-term publishing, we do ask for students who are doing any human-based research to go through the IRB process, and a number of students have done that and it's something that we talk about in the summer session, where we talk about who is required to do IRB approval, who is not required. So for, which is a really interesting division. So my background is in history, and we have a student who's doing oral history, and it turns out oral history, they do not want to see it at all. It's like totally not only exempt, or whatever the words are, they don't want you to apply with an oral history project. They're like, no. And so I was like, we're talking to humans about their experience, but that means nothing. Whereas other students, they're like, yeah, I have to get IRB approval if I want to work on this. And so we do work, we are familiar with the process on that. So there's a hand over here.
Yeah. For someone who doesn't have necessarily have a very strong research background, how successful would someone be in this program?
So you fielded that on the left side.
That's a great question, and we have a range. I think Allison mentioned a range in our current scholars, for those who have never engaged in research to those who are quite adept at it. And so again, we welcome that, because part of this summer session is making sure that we're all to some degree on the same level as it relates to understanding kind of what our foundational elements are. And remember, some people are thinking about this from a teaching perspective and how to extend that. So it's not limited to only research from the traditional research perspective. And so, yeah, we invite application for people who have absolutely no experience in research. I mean, one question I asked this morning was, how many of you have put together a research abstract for a conference? Several people had not, and that's okay, because we'll go over how to do that, and you'll be prepared to do that come April 20th when it's due. So another. Do you have another?
Yeah, you can go. I'll
I was
ask.
just going to add to that.
We're going to add to it.
Yeah, my advisor's been really great. So if you have somebody that's your main advisor to help you, just bring you through that process. I'm a doctoral student, but I haven't done a whole lot of research yet. I'm still building on that. But my advisor's been awesome in getting involved and helping me with the project. And just some of the little questions like, so how do I submit this? And where would you put this? Yeah, so it's been really helpful. So if you have an advisor who's really supportive, it's going to be very key in the process.
And a lot of the research that you would do as part of this program, you actually cover in communities.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so a lot of this stuff dovetails really tightly into what we do in social work. So it's really weird. I'm almost the fish in the water that can't see it, and it's kind of fun to hear about this sort of thing from other disciplines' perspectives.
I'll also just say that word research means very different things in different disciplines.
Okay.
So, in history, it means reading lots of books, and for other people, it's running computer simulations for hours. For other people, it's lab-based research. All of these ideas of what research is are welcome at the table, and one of the things that we do is talk about what happens when we have that term research and what does it mean. So we welcome all levels. We also recognize that some people are applying after just completing a single semester. So if you are a master's student, you have only been here for a semester, and we obviously have successful master's students. Sometimes the PhDs apply in their third or fourth year, so they have significantly more experience, and so the range is there. So.
Yeah, I'm a third-year PhD student, and but I don't know if I'd be able to get my some of these application documents in time for February 9th, because my advisor is in Finland right now, and so the letter of recommendation would be a difficult thing to get here on time. So is it possible to submit my documents and then have the other parts come in separately?
Hard question.
Is there only one advisor who could write that?
She's not, yes. I mean, that advisor part, yes. Yeah, she's
So,
my advisor.
So, just remember, we want it as an email, so it's not a physical thing.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
you don't, like, it's not about the slowness of the mail, so we still have time. One of the reasons that we want a letter from your advisor is to make sure you're not going off the reservation and doing something that they don't approve of. We are not in the position of, augmenting, or sort of stealing. We don't want the advisors to come back and be like, what is my person doing, taking all this time? They should be doing this other thing. So we want to make sure that everybody's on board with it. So the letter from the advisor really needs to give their blessing to you pursuing this project. And it doesn't have to be long. We're not looking for a 3-page thing. We just want them to assess your skills and then, just a single-page letter and make sure that they want to do that. So if you're very interested in this, contact your advisor now to see if they can grant that approval, and we hope that they can get an email to you in time. So.
Yeah, that's something I have to find out too, whether they approve or not.
That's important.
Yeah.
I mean, we really do want their approval.
Yep.
Like I said, you can reference that you have current people in the philosophy department, so this is not, you're not the guinea pig in that, and say it's a way to add to it.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So going off that, I know you have to show up to a certain number of classes and things like that, but what would you say would be the typical time commitment you have to dedicate to something like this?
This is a scholar question.
Yeah, this is definitely a scholar question. I know how much time we put in. What do you guys do?
I guess meeting-wise, or are you talking like overall projects?
Say like in a typical week, let's say outside of the classes,
Okay.
to your project, I know you talked about setting up meetings, things like that. So how much time commitment would somebody expect to dedicate to something like this?
I guess for me it's probably a little bit different because I went out to South Carolina State I think we went out once, and then we've done phone communication since then and emails. Maybe a couple hours a week. It's going to be a little bit more with the writing process, I think, for us, and once we get the surveys out, the data collection will be a little bit more, and like the analysis part. But other than that, for me, it hasn't been too much because it is part of my dissertation. So that's why it's kind of hard for me to answer that one.
Mine is just evolving as it goes along, and so there's certain weeks that I don't have to work on it at all, and then there are other weeks that I dedicate maybe 3 to 4 hours. So overall, I would just say a couple hours a week. It really has not been nearly as much as I thought originally. So
The first 2 weeks.
after the first 2 weeks. So.
It would depend on the scope of your project. I would think it really depends on how ambitious you are and how aggressive you're being with what you're trying to do. There have been some weeks where I've done nothing with it, and there have been some weeks where I've spent 10 or 15 hours, because that's what it took to get those 5 people in a room at one time. It kind of depends. It has ebbed and flowed for me.
And our role as directors is to really try to shepherd you through that process. So there are some assignments that by design and hopefully by execution kind of help remind some people, oh, this is a requirement of this class, so I should probably be thinking about my project. But there are also some opportunities as directors where we've had to say, let's scale back, let's slow down. You don't have to be as aggressive as this timeline suggests that you're trying to be. Let's think about what are things that you can maybe pare down for this term, and then maybe shoot some other things over into the next term. So it really is our role to make this as manageable and as real world experience as we can for the scholars. Is that fair to say? Are we doing that?
Yeah. Everybody's been very supportive of managing the load and making adjustments, because this is all about you.
And so there are assignments in each set, whether it's the summer set, the fall set, or the spring set. These assignments are modeled after a normal grant process. So assignment is writing a project proposal, revising your project proposal, giving a one-page update, writing an abstract for a conference. So all of the assignments are really designed to help you move your project along. We do not try to create assignments that are make work or assignments that do not add to your own professional development as a scholar. So that's at least the rationale behind the assignments. And I don't think any of the assignments are too onerous. They're really what you need to do to really be thinking about your project. Yep. And it gives us the opportunity to give feedback on them. And a lot of our feedback is scope. You guys have heard us in class. A lot of it is we have to find new ways to say, well, that is a really great idea. Well, let's think what's manageable. And we are trying to think about again, you're balancing your own time. And then at some point the students are like, so I may have bitten off a little bit more than I could chew. And then we talk about how do you revise your projects to work that way. That's why the project snapshots, they're an evolution, and where we end up on April 20th with our final presentation is, it's different than where we started during this time last year when these students were all applying. Question? Someone had their hand up. Oh, you have a question on?
No, there are 2 more slides left, including the timeline, and I want to make sure we get those on the recording, and then we can answer questions as long as people want to stay.
Okay, we're going to show 2 slides, and then we'll answer the additional questions. Okay, it's me then. So, 2 slides. So if you guys want to scoot out of the way so that we have them. The letter of agreement. If you are selected as a Civic Scholar, you'll get a letter of agreement that you'll need to have signed signed by your faculty advisor, your graduate director, or your program director if you have that, Lucy and myself as the directors of the Civic Scholars and the graduate school. This is effectively a contract. It lays out the expectations of what you will do as a Civic Scholar, and also what you will receive as a benefit. So here's the timetable. So January 25th, right now, we are in an information session. Hopefully you're learning all sorts of things and getting great answers to all of your questions. February 9th, I've said it multiple times, deadline, 5 p.m. All of your materials submitted as a single PDF to gradprofdev@sc.edu. Have your recommenders send their letters separately. Again, same email address. In both cases, have the subject line be GCSP, that's Graduate Civic Scholars Program, : and then your applicant name. We will review and announce all of the scholars by March 1st. And then the summer intensive session that we keep talking about is May 14th through the 25th. That's Monday through Friday from 9 till noon, meeting in the room we are right now. There will also be monthly meetings throughout the academic years. Those will be scheduled once everybody knows their schedules, their teaching commitments, their GA commitments, their internship placements, their teaching placements, and we will try to figure that out. Our scholars are laughing because that's what we did this morning, and sometimes it means you meet at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is when we were here. So, but anyway, we do have monthly meetings throughout the year. So, okay, so we got those.
We page ahead 2 more.
2.
1 more.
Another one.
Perfect.
There you go. Contact information. If we did not get to answer your question, please direct all of them at my partner, Lucy Ingram. She will answer them all. But
a lot of information already listed on the Graduate Civic Scholars webpage, including a nice FAQ. Please do not ask us questions that are already answered there, or questions that are easily done through a Google search, because we will just say, well, you know, didn't you Google that? So look up, see if you can find the questions, and then if you want clarification, do not hesitate to ask us, because we will do that.
And we've already fielded between the
I know.
two of us
Yeah.
a number of questions, so keep those emails coming. I'm meeting with, I met with someone this morning, I'm meeting with someone else next week, so we really do invite questions for clarification.
We are all about your success in the program, so if there's things that we want to, you have questions, please talk to us. We are open and making this, successful for you. So both as an applicant as well as through the program, and I'm hoping you all can expect that. So you guys can